Today, I want to talk about the power of lease options and why I think lease options slash rent to own is the best investing strategy. Maybe a bold statement for some, uh, not for me. I feel it, and I've really committed the last 12 years to this. There's been some of this going on with markets in my own life, in the business, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. But I want to share my knowledge with you on why I think everyone needs to know how to do lease options. It's such a powerful, powerful tool. First of all, I'm going to talk about the overall spectrum of real estate investing and kind of, what's all out there, and then dive in deeper. The spectrum of real estate investing. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start from the most basic to the most advanced. Now, I'm not going to hit exactly every strategy exactly where they should be on that strategy. This is just an exaggeration of the spectrum. And I'm going to miss some wording, and you can say, well, what about this? And it all kind of fits in there, and I think that you'll see it. So from the very basic spectrum of real estate investing, I would suggest that is bird dogging. Okay. Now, what bird dogging is a male person walking down the street, seeing a house that looks derelict. There were people in there, but it's been vacant for 3 months. That male person calls up their buddy who's a flipper and says, hey, you should check this house out, whatever. That's what bird dogging is. And usually the bird dog, the person who does it, gets paid a fee. Now, you might say, well, what about trades? What about people who are carpenters, all that stuff? I'm going to leave trades out of the spectrum of REI for today. So bird dogging would be the first one. Wholesaling would be the next one. And that is where that same bird dog who mentions it to a flipper, the flipper gets into the house and realizes, you know what, I think I could make more money quickly right now just by getting this house under contract and selling it to somebody else. That's what wholesaling is. Okay. And after wholesaling, again, here's where it gets a little bit, it doesn't need to be in this order, but rent to own slash lease options. Okay. Lease options, rent to own, same thing. All right. After that is buy, rent, and hold. And then, so buy, rent, and hold, for those of you who are newer to this stuff, buy, rent, and hold is you buy something, you rent it, and you hold it long term. Your exit strategy is to hold it long term. Okay. All right. And then after buy, rent, and hold, I would suggest is buy, renovate, rent, and refinance, what's called the BRRRR method. All right. So the BRRRR method is very popular. I mean, all these in different circles are very popular. But the BRRRR is a great method for really getting in with, ultimately, when you do a successful BRRRR, you should own that property by yourself with having essentially none of your money in, because you added value and you pulled that money out. All right. Then you've heard me talk about the burrito. And the burrito is much like the BRRRR, but you're putting in a tenant buyer and you're doing an RTO. All right. So very similar principle. So on a BRRRR, typically you are turning a BRRRR into a buy, rent, and hold. That's your exit strategy long term. Where rent owns are typically shorter term, meaning 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 years at max. Sometimes they do go longer, but typically they're shorter. All right. So there's the burrito. And so underneath the BRRRR, you might have stuff like, infills, where you buy a derelict house on a 50-foot wide lot and you tear it down and you subdivide it, or you build a small multifamily on it, or you build just one house, or maybe it's a house with a suite, suited, or it's a house with a carriage house. There's another name for that, but basically where you put on the back of the yard another unit, and that can be over top of a garage or standalone unit. So that's kind of the single family. So I'm going to keep on going. Remember, I'm talking about a spectrum, right? So we've talked about bird dogging, we've talked about wholesaling. I haven't really talked about them. I've just referred to them. Burr and burrito, and these all fit under the burrs, the infill suite and carriage house, where you're adding massive value, and you're building a much larger equity, right? All right, and then from there we start to get into multifamily, right? And so you got multifamily small, and that can be 3 doors to let's say 23. And you can get into multifamily large, where it's 24 and up, right? So there's multifamily, and then you start to get into so that's typically where you'll buy a building that's already existing. Then you can get into multifamily development. All right, multifamily development, and that's where maybe you're doing a major rehab on that building, or you're actually building a multifamily. So that's different than just buying a multifamily. It's a longer process, all that sort of stuff. And then you've got land development. Okay, so land development, like a subdivision, or you can start doing retail, or you can start doing commercial development. Okay, so commercial development, both just commercial, picking up a commercial or developing. And so I won't even go into, beyond that, we could go into industrial, but I'm not going to even touch on that today. All right. So I really wish that this was horizontal for my brain, but maybe for you, this is better. So that is what I suggest is the overarching spectrum of real estate investing. Like I said before, I'm sure I've missed on a couple ones, and this and that. If you've got questions, please put them in the comments. If you want to correct me on stuff, that's cool too. Partly why I did the spectrum is kind of from easy to more difficult. And for some of you, I know I've heard people say, you know what, multifamily is easier than single family. But for today's purpose, I'm going to talk about this is in this order for the purpose of easiness to more difficult. And that's where, this one maybe would come down maybe here, because RTOs, lease options, can become quite advanced, because you can do lease options on all these. Okay, that's just a little nugget right there. But let me talk about pricing on this. Okay, so bird dogging, you don't need any money to do. Wholesaling, you don't really need any money to do. Lease options, buy, rent, and hold, Burr method, you start needing more money. So I'm not talking about investors yet. I'm just talking about when you're doing it on your own. You start to need more money, right? And multifamily, you need even more money. And I get that financing on multifamily is different than residential, like 1 or 2 doors. But, it's more money for a multifamily. You need a bigger mortgage. If you're putting 20% down of $10 million, well, that's $2 million. That's different than buying a house for 500 and coming up with, 20% of that. Multifamily development, even more expensive. And so this whole line here, especially when you start getting into development, um, let me suggest to you that you need deep pockets. So why do I say that? Because rarely does stuff happen on your timeline and your schedule. During the development phase, you're not making any money. You might have set up the contracts in such a way that you're making money, but you've got no real revenue coming in. It's caveats to that, of course, but as a general rule, when I developed some land, when I developed a multifamily, we had no revenue coming in. And so there's delays that can happen. And so, I had where is it? So we did a land development that was going along well. And then we had two, maybe three things happen. One, the market shifted, and we're small developers were normally buying, 6 to 10 lots. We're now saying to us when we got to that point with this development that, you know what, we need to sell our lots over here because the market's shifted. And I might be interested in one. And we were counting on, a bunch of developers to buy a bunch of lots, pre-sales like that before we even, got it shovel ready for them. So the market shifted for developers, small home builders, which affected us. And then also that winter that we were, here in central Canada, it gets a little bit cold in the middle of winter. And we were, I think, 5 man days away from all of our underground work being done. And we had a really cold deep freeze that year. So cold that the colder it gets, the deeper the frost level gets in the soil. And the frost level got so deep that they couldn't work anymore. So literally 5 days left, but they had to stop, which meant we were delayed by 6 months by the time they got back in because of road conditions, all that sort of stuff. So when they finally got back in, yada, yada, the roads, after everything was done and the roads finally got put in, the first snowfall came in that following fall. Well, that changes everything because everybody wants to get into the ground in spring. So we were set back for a full building season because of that winter thing. And then we also had the addition of the builders not buying, a bunch of lots. Well, that meant an extra year, and even when the year was up, but an extra year of out-of-pocket costs, no revenue coming in from any pre-sales. And now when we finally could sell them and developers could get into the ground, they weren't buying the way that we had anticipated. Deep pockets is what you need to sustain those sort of things. And that can happen in anything. It can happen in single family stuff too. But these don't cost as much. So that is the spectrum. And what I want to do now is I want to dive deep into why I think lease options trump all these, why they're paramount. The number one reason why I think lease options are paramount is because you can structure them as no money down deals. Now, yes, you can do no money down deals on all of these. However, it's a little bit tougher to do a no money down deal on a multifamily for your first time than it is to do it on a single family house, right? So lease options you could do with no money down. And this is how I quit my day job, because I remembered that you could do these deals as no money down. So no money down deal is great. Also, you can do them, again, like I said, a shorter term, right? So the two ways that I do no money down deals, right? So let me just put here, no money down deals. So the two ways that I do no money down deals is, first of all, I partner with investors and they purchase a house and my company looks after everything. And so I generate cash flow for my company and they get a great return on their money. So they're coming up, like right now in this market, they're coming up with 20% down plus closing costs and they're qualifying for the mortgage. So what they get in return for that is, double digit returns and a hands-free turnkey investment. They like it. I love it. They love it. I like it. What's also nice about this is that it's shorter term. So if you do a buy, rent, and hold with a partner, the idea is that you're holding that for a very long time. Well, what if things turn sideways with that partner and you don't want to work with them anymore or they don't want to work with you? You're kind of caught. And then it gets messy. The nice thing about lease options is that they're typically, like I said before, 1 to 5 years. And the way that I've got my contracts written, everybody knows what their roles and responsibilities are. And it's got a finite deadline on it, knowing that, okay, we've got a 3-year agreement on this. If stuff goes weird after 1 year, you've only got 2 years left to endure this. Now, typically that doesn't happen, but we've all heard of stories of partners doing stuff that we didn't agree with and it just got ugly. This is a shorter time frame within a shorter agreement that is defined. All right. The other thing in here, I'm sorry, let me go back. So that's the first type of investor. The other type of investor that I work with is what I call tired and frustrated landlords, basically distressed seller. So what that is someone in any market for whatever reason has got a property that they're having troubles with. And so I'm working with a client right now and he has got a property here in Winnipeg that, all fixed up is probably worth $500,000 and really an absentee landlord. He's been managing it himself, but really an absentee manager, living in the same city, but hadn't been in it for 2 years. Recently did the carpets, all new paint. And all of a sudden in the last couple of months, the tenants started getting weird and said they wanted to vacate the property. He starts finding out that there's stuff going on in the property that he wouldn't have approved of. And, including, it's 2-year-old carpet. It looks like it's 10 years old. There's significant water damage in the basement from the bathroom upstairs. This place is just dirty. It's ugly. So these tenants have devalued this property. And that's what happens when you don't go into your properties and inspect them on a regular basis. So now this property is worth less money than really what it should be. So it's going to cost a bunch of money to get it up to market and a lot more money to sell it at top dollar. Now, we're in a pretty hot market here. You put stuff up and stuff will sell pretty quickly. Now we're moving into the winter months. It slows down a bit now, but not great timing to put on MLS. So he's thought about doing MLS. And the problem with that is, there's realtor fees, which are typically here about 5%. You got a bunch of fees to get it show ready. And also this person's got a mortgage penalty. They, I think a year ago, renewed their mortgage. And so to get out of it is a double digit, like thousands of dollars to break the mortgage with their bank. So that's a problem just to sell it. And so they contacted us, or actually we got a bird dog and we reached out to them and we're working this out. We're working details. That's a win-win. So those are the two types of investors that I work with, right? Like investors who purchase the properties and tired and frustrated landlords. Those are how I structure no money down deals. Now, the next great thing with doing lease options is that you get higher cash flow than normal. with little to no monthly expenses. So why do I say that? So for those of you who've got buy, rent, and holds and you've got tenants in there, the toilet gets plugged 99% of the time. They are not fixing it themselves. They're calling you. And then you'll get some tenants that will call you at 11 at night saying, my light bulbs are just burnt out. Can you come fix them? You know, all that sort of stuff. When I do lease options, when I do rent owns, I structure in such a way that I make the tenants responsible for these minor repairs. So if the toilet gets plugged, that's their responsibility. If an element on a stove goes, that's their responsibility. All these kind of regular maintenance issues that buy, rent, and hold landlords deal with, we're putting back on the tenant buyer because we want them to think like a homeowner. We want them to take care of the property. We encourage them to take care of the property. We give them a homeowner's manual when they move in that teaches them how to do this stuff. We get in there minimum 3 times a year with our triennial visits to inspect the property. And we set it up in such a way that we're showing them how to do stuff. Furnace filters, batteries in smoke detectors. Make sure they got a CO alarm. Make sure that they got a fire extinguisher that's not discharged, all that sort of stuff. But we're also in there inspecting the property for ourselves and on behalf of our owners and investors. So when we receive $500 a month from the tenant extra above the rent, that's cash flow for us. And that's awesome. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right. You're going to make mistakes. Okay? When you learn to ride a bike, when you learn to walk, you made mistakes. You fell on your butt. You scraped your knee. You bumped your head. It's a progress. Growing up in BC, I knew that I was improving as a skier when I would wipe out more, right? Some runs and some days I just want to play it safe. And I had fun, but I could only do that for so while because I wanted to experience new things like, oh, that jump, look at those moguls. Those are the hardest moguls I've ever looked at. So I'm going down those moguls because I want to conquer them. Well, I'm going to wipe out. Same with real estate investing. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. That's part of growth. But I would rather make mistakes on a $300,000 home than a $3 million project or up. So you're going to make mistakes. Might also cut your teeth on smaller deals like this. All right. The next one is that you get to sharpen your skills. So with lease options, it's not your regular buy, rent, and hold. So you can learn how to do buy, rent, and hold from a book. It's how I did it. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, took the basic principles he had in there, and I went and bought my first buy, rent, and hold. Pretty simple. With lease options, you're going to learn new strategies and stuff like that. And so when I did my first lease option and I hired a coach just to coach me through it, that was good. I did my first deal and then I saw, hey, there's a lease option course coming up. And I went to it. I paid $5,000 for the course. It was a 3-day course with no coaching. It was just like drinking from a fire hose. I went there, but I learned stuff and then I could go back and put it into action. So when I went there for the first time, I was able to apply what the teacher was talking about and apply it to the one deal that I had just recently done. So that was great. I could apply it. But now, it's kind of like I built a step for myself and now I was up a little bit higher and I could see differently. So I learned some stuff there that I didn't know. And I went back and applied that. And then I went back to that course a year later. Now I was up even higher and I could hear stuff that I couldn't hear on the first time I took the course. So I'm a lifelong student. I went to college. I went to seminary. I got my master's. I'm a proponent for lifelong education. I'm not a proponent of going to school because I got nothing else to do. I'm not sure what to do with my life. I think that's a waste of time and money. We went on a family trip to drop my oldest off at college in BC, and the day before he was supposed to start, we ended up we had a long discussion, realized that he was going to college for the wrong reason, and we turned around, came back, and he did something else. So I was okay with that because it started out going, well, if you want to do that, why are you going to school to do this? Because that those don't match. So, but if you're going to school, college or whatever for a specific thing that you want to do, that you need that education, go for it. But I'm a lifelong proponent of education. I'm still learning. So my point in saying that is even if you've done one or 10 lease options, you still need to take lease option education because you're going to learn stuff that you didn't know from somebody else because of their experience. And when I would go back to those courses and pay 5,000 each time for the course, I would learn stuff that would either save me, like I remember the second course saved me $15,000 mistake that I was doing before, but I stopped doing it. Well, there's money well spent. And then also, it taught me how to do a deal differently that I'd never thought of before. And that generated me more revenue. So it's going to sharpen your skills when you do these deals. So mixed with that is learning creative skills. When you sharpen your skills and you learn creative skills through this, it puts you head and shoulders above other investors. Just an example, a whole bunch of my deals that have come to me that I've closed on have been deals that other investors have passed over because they look at it with the buy, rent, and hold glasses on. I can't do this deal because the numbers don't work as a buy, rent, and hold. And then they'll go for months of not doing a deal because they've only got those lenses on. I was there. I would say for the first 5 years, the only thing I ventured out into after a big revenue loss was I ventured out into the BRRRR. I did a bunch of buy, rent, and holds, and then I did a BRRRR. But I can remember I was so frustrated. It's like 9 months went by. I had the ability to get another mortgage, but I couldn't find a buy, rent, and hold that fit my numbers. So now what happens is when I go into a house with a property, like I don't go to open houses. I don't go to multiple offer date type deals. I go to really problem houses, and then there may be nothing wrong with the house, but the owner's got a problem. And so I will go into this, and as I'm going into it, this grid that I just showed you, this spectrum, is running through my mind. Okay, do I wholesale this one? Do I do a flip on it? Could we tear this down? Could we fix this one up and build on the other side of the property? Do we do a rent own? All this stuff is running through my head, and so I've been into multiple properties where I know I've actually bumped into other people looking at these properties who are still active in real estate. I bumped into these properties. They say, there's nothing to be done on this house. It's a waste of time. The guy was walking out saying, this place is toast. And so we ended up doing that deal. And I think over 4 years, I had investors purchase it. I took it off of TFL, and then I had an like investor purchase it for me. I think I made between 50 and 60 grand off of that house over those 5 or 6 years. And this was a house that someone else said nothing to be done here, couldn't make money. And my investors all made money along the way as well. So learning these creative skills is going to help you do more deals quicker, and especially off market deals, right? Where a lot of people like asking, I can't find any off market deals. They are everywhere. You got to take those glasses off and you got to try on different lenses. No, like off market deals are everywhere. Literally, I just got a text not an hour ago from somebody who says that they've got a lead on a triplex, and he listed the price. It's well under even a lot value. And he's like, "Do you want to see it?" Yep, let's go see it tomorrow at 11 o'clock. They're everywhere, right? So that's what you can do when you learn this strategy, which helps you with all these other strategies, because now you have a lot more deals coming to you because people know that you can think outside of the box, you can think creatively, you can get deals done. And a year ago exactly, uh, we were brought I was brought a deal of, let's see, how many was it? 8 homes, all off market, and we got it. We were able to close quickly. We were creative. I think we got them for 30 cents on the dollar, and turned around and sold them for 70 cents on the dollar, and virtually did nothing to the properties. How did I do that? Because I'm smarter? No. It's experience and creative thinking, and just going, how can we do this deal? Because we needed, the cash up front. We needed it quickly. We were able to close in 2 weeks. Like, we took possession within 2 weeks with a big chunk of money down. And yeah, it's just, it was a creative deal that other people couldn't move quickly enough because they didn't know how to do it. It just comes with experience and by trying different things, right? Like I said, uh, when it comes to doing deals, you're going to make mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes. That land development deal I was telling you about, fortunately, we were able to work it out where we could just walk away. We didn't make anything, nor did we lose anything. Um, and the person that came in behind us made a boatload of money. Okay, so you're going to make mistakes, but with experience. So the guy that came in behind us, way more experience we had, much deeper pockets. He came at it with a different angle, and that we couldn't see, nor did we have the experience or the funding to do. But that's often what happens, is when people lose their shirts on a deal, the next person coming in behind them usually makes a bunch of money. The next thing is it's problem solving and helping people. So what's cool about this strategy is, like this gentleman I'm talking about, we get to help him out of their problem, right? So if we can come in and agree to, the purchase price and the monthly amount, we're solving their headache, because right now it's sitting vacant, and he's panicking, going, I don't know what to do, because anyway he cuts it, he's not super experienced in real estate investing, um, but he doesn't really know where to go. And his exit strategy right now all cost him a lot of money, right? Selling it, I mean, might break even if sold on MLS. In this particular example, if they went with us, they'll end up making money. They'll have 3 years of mortgage pay down, very few expenses, and so that's a win. So I get to help them. Also, when I do rent owns with a tenant buyer as the exit strategy, I get to help families get into home ownership, and that's super cool, right? We're just in the process of closing with another family. They came to us, I would say, 34 months ago, and they needed a place. They have been treating this house wonderfully. They treat it like it's their own. They've been building and repairing their credit. I think his credit score is 750, and we just got to make sure that the debt servicing is okay. And then they're going to be able to close at the end of January. So pumped about that. Get to help people into home ownership. These are all the reasons why I think doing lease options, understanding them, having them in your toolbox, but not just having them in their toolbox, but actually using that tool. Because you can have a great tool in your toolbox, but if you don't know how to use it, it doesn't really help you, right? Like, I can buy the greatest Milwaukee tool, right? That you know carpenters salivate over, and I can buy that, and it's in my toolbox, but I have no idea how to use it. Well, what's the point? learn how to do lease options and then actually use it, right? And that's when it sticks, but that's when you start seeing all the creative deals that you were passing over before. You will literally shake your head going, I can't believe all the deals that I've passed over the last 2 years, because this strategy teaches you to do that. And what happens is the more deals you do, the more deals that come to you, right? Because I started doing off, rent to owns early, lease options early, and structuring them as no money down deals as my first one, and then my 100th one, and all that sort of stuff. Now I've got deals come to me that are multifamily because I'm active and I can structure creative deals, right? Because you can do a lease option with a multifamily and you can do it with land. The bottom line in why I think lease options is the best strategy is because it is a gateway to more creative deals, more cash flow, more money, more equity, and bigger and better deals and more investors. If you learned one thing in here, you need to take action on it because that's how you really learn. And what I'd appreciate from you is that you hit like on this and you share this video with someone else, and please hit subscribe so that the algorithm works in such a way to get this out to more people to help more investors get to their next level. Thanks so much for being on this. I'm Cam Rowland. I'm with Creative Investor, and take action.